Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Grounded in Motion. I'm Dr. Renee Whynes, and this episode is tender, reflective, and incredibly close to the heart. I hope it meets you wherever you are, whether you are grieving, healing, or simply holding space for someone else's story. Let me start by saying that grief changes everything. It silences rooms that were once full of laughter. It rearranges time, makes memories feel both too close and too far. But sometimes, in the middle of that stillness, something new finds its voice. Today, I am joined by my dear friend Laura, whose story is deeply moving. We're diving into a conversation about loss, the kind that shakes your world, stops your breath, and rearranges what it means to keep moving. She lost her mom to cancer, one that came unexpectedly, suddenly, and with no roadmap for what came next. When the diagnosis came, it changed everything. What followed was a journey through heartbreak, music, family, and survival. It's not just a story of loss, it's of presence, resilience, and love in motion. This episode is about grief, family, and healing, and how we try to keep moving when life breaks wide open. So, Laura, welcome, and thank you for being here and for trusting this space with your story. I know this isn't easy to talk about, and I am just truly honored you are willing to share. Your family and your music became an anchor in the wake of losing your mom. You played in a band, surrounded yourself with your siblings, held close to your dad, and through it all, you kept showing up. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so grateful you're here today.
I'm very grateful too. Thank you for having me.
Can you tell us about your mom? What was she like?
If I could sum it up, she was basically the embodiment of purity. She was just deep down just a very good person. Again, very resilient. And I don't just say that because she was my mom. She had 3 children and raised them very well, and also managed to pursue and finish her PhD degree. And she was a scientist at heart, and she cared about figuring out when it comes to cancer, which is kind of the irony behind all of this. But she ended up finishing out her PhD degree when I was young, after she knew that she was able to do that. And then she went on to get a faculty position at Harvard Med School and then pursued research in cancer. So basically, she dedicated her life to cancer research. So that's the irony. The irony is that then she ended up being diagnosed. She never smoked a day in her life, but somehow was diagnosed with lung cancer and with a genetic mutation, an EFGR mutation, which was what she was studying. I guess the takeaway is just she was just a very good person.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Laura. I think data shows that many people get diagnosed with lung cancer for not being a smoker. Roughly 10 to 20% of lung cancer cases each year are diagnosed in individuals who have never smoked. So thank you for your openness. This gives voice to families who have lived through this unexpectedly. And your courage helps us to have conversations that matter. Can you take us back to the moment your mom was first diagnosed with cancer? What do you remember the most about that moment?
Yeah, it was very flooded with all sorts of emotions. And I can't pinpoint it to a certain moment, but She had been having headaches, and I think about 6 months leading up to it. The big C never crossed my mind once. And then all of a sudden, my sister called me and said, hey, Mom's on her way to the hospital for a CAT scan. They think something's going on. They saw something. And I went into denial at first. That was it. And then when it really hit was when we found out that, yes, this is a metastasized thing that's originated from another part of the body. And I was a little ignorant at the time about what that even meant, because we don't really have cancer that runs in our family. Very thankful for that. And so I didn't really know how to quite deal with it at the time, and everybody just was in denial. She'll be fine, it's fine. Until we got the prognosis, and that's when it really hit.
Sure, that was a very difficult moment for the family, right? To really digest that, because as you said, no one in the family have had cancer that you can think of, so this was a total shock.
Oh, it was out of nowhere. I mean, it was the middle of the winter. It was December 5th, and I'll never forget, we all rallied together and came to my house, and we had a fire in the middle of the winter in my backyard. Because it was during COVID, so nobody could be around. Yeah, we had to be outside, and everybody was just dumbfounded. How do you deal? How does one deal with something like that in the moment, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's a question I don't even know to answer myself, because there's so many things that goes through your head at that moment that you begin to question, why my mom? Why my family? Why did this happen at this time during COVID? I can feel that moment for you and your family was the most difficult, because what you normally do to soothe and comfort someone, it was next to impossible, right? Because you couldn't hug each other. It changes the situation.
Exactly. And especially because it was a lung cancer diagnosis, and COVID specifically affects your lungs. So we wanted to elongate her life as much as we could, right? And, and I guess the other part to answer that question is what really hit me, too, was what's going to happen from here? We all know what happens when the downfall begins with cancer, right? There's no getting around it. It's a train. The train's keeping on going. A lot of times there's something you can do about it, of course, but when it's stage 4 like that, and you just
got to prepare for the worst, right? You prepare that the end is going to come, and it's just hard to process.
Yeah, and I remember talking to my boyfriend at the time and just crying and saying, I don't want to watch this happen to her. And I didn't know how it was going to happen. I didn't know what I was going to see. It's terrifying. It's a nightmare.
Because it came out of nowhere. It was unexpected. And it shook you, not just you, but your sister and your dad.
Especially my dad. And, they were married for 45 years. They had the most beautiful marriage. They just loved each other so much, and they were each other's rocks, basically.
Yeah. What did support look like between you, your dad, and your sister? How did you guys cope?
Well, we're all very different people. I think that in this case, my dad seemed like he was the most affected, even though he might not have been. And my sister, I think she was feeling it inside. I'm just like, what's the goal here? How can we elongate her life as much as possible, right? Let's get you a doctor at Dana-Farber, right? Let's try clinical trials. Let's do all that type of stuff. What kind of medications are you going to need? My sister at the time had just had a beautiful newborn baby. His name's Cyrus, my nephew, and he is just this little light. And I'm so thankful that my mom got to meet him. But he brought a light into the whole situation, and as well as my other nephew, Alex, who is my since passed other sister's son. And so we kind of focused on that. She focused on that end of it. I focused on the business end of it. And then my dad was just dumbfounded and was like, I don't know what to do. Help me. We all dealt with very different people.
That is such a beautiful summary of how you and your family walked through the loss of your mom. What strikes me the most is how each of you grieve differently in your own rhythm, and yet you still found your way back to one another. That's so beautiful. I do believe that in grief, families can fracture or they can fuse. And we saw how much you all fused together during this difficult time. I saw it at the time when it happened, during the service, and the way you are today, knowing that you're still grieving and you're still going through the process, but it helps you.
I think it might be an endless process. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do any of us know? I mean, when does grief end?
I don't think we do know, and I don't think it ever ends. I think we just try to live with it and then figure out what can we do day by day to make it better, because it never goes away. It will still be there no matter what, but we can always think of the good things, the happy times that we've had with those we've lost, and keep their memories alive. That's what keeps us going. We'll never stop grieving.
It is, and that's another thing I think of too very often is just, even sometimes if you see something that reminds you of a person, it doesn't have to be like, there's a ghost, the ghost is here in the room. It's just, that's what's keeping that alive. It's the energy within you of that person. And, you're a scientist like me, right? So I think of things very scientifically, right? So that the law of thermodynamics there, right? Energy is
Absolutely.
it's conserved, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, energy is conserved. So
exactly.
When all of those, the vibrating molecules, when it goes out into space, that energy is still there. So.
It's still there. That's actually a very good analogy right there. I know that music is part of your life, and I do believe you time music to healing, but it also helps to where you are today, because that's one thing that keeps you alive and keep you going despite the sadness that you felt, and you found refuge in your music, not just for yourself but for your mom as well. So do you remember a time when the music helped you feel close to her again, whether it's right now, last year, the year before when you lost her? How did that play a role?
I remember, it's a really good question. Her favorite song, or one of her favorite songs of all time, was "You've Got a Friend" by
Love that song.
James Taylor, Carole King. Yeah, and
Yes.
When it first hit, right around that time of that diagnosis, when it really sunk in, like, this is happening, and there's no way of getting around it. I just remember one night calling her on the phone and putting that song on in the background, and no words were spoken. And I just was laying in bed with her on the phone with that song in the background and just crying, and that brought us together so much. And there's a history to that song as well, because I played the song in my chorus concert when I was 12 years old. But I played that song because it was her favorite song. It was for her birthday at the time. Anyway, there was a connection specifically with that song. And Carole King, so on that note, we do a tribute to Carole King. We've been doing it almost every year. Actually, right after she died was the first time that we started doing this tribute at a place in Norwich called Strange Brew. And it's the entire Carole King Tapestry album, and it was one of her favorite albums. And when I'll be doing that on December 12th, next Friday, again. And every time we play that album, I feel so connected to her because it was her favorite album, and that song is actually on that album. And every time I play that song, I just close my eyes and I think of her, just like it says in the song.
That's wonderful.
Close your eyes and think of me. Try not to cry.
Beautiful.
Stuff.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
No, that's wonderful, Laura. Sometimes the things that gives us the most peace is what can actually bring you back to the moment, maybe to the moment you were a child and how you can see her at that very time. So that is
it's very powerful.
Very powerful. And I can see how your mom's memory truly influences some of your performances that you do today. Would you say that's true?
Yes. Yes, very much so. I'll never forget, the day was December 5th, which is it's Dutch Christmas, when we first got the prognosis/diagnosis. It was the middle of the winter. It was right around Christmas time, and there were certain songs that were very important to my mom. Christmas was very, very important to us as a family, specifically with my since passed sister, Michelle. Her name is Michelle. And my mother and my father and Becky as well. She's my other sister. But we surprised her with this Christmas concert at her nursing home. And we had to do it outside. And I just got a couple friends together and we played all of her favorite Christmas songs. Some not Christmas songs. We did it Nat King Cole, The Very Thought of You, which is a very important song to our family. It's the end of that movie, Home for the Holidays. It's a song that basically just reflects on like your life and what you've done in it, what you're proud of in your life. We played all these songs for her outside of her nursing home, and she got to watch us through this sliding glass door in her cute little wheelchair. And I just have this vision in my head of she was just so happy, in her cute little pink bathrobe, and they piped the music in, and we all just stand 6 feet apart outside in the freezing cold. But we did that for her. Music was always very important with us. Growing up, my mom was the one that introduced me to music. She would play classical music for me when I was in my crib, and she would make up songs and put my name to the lyrics, like Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. And I really became enthralled with Mozart, specifically. That movie, Amadeus, was one of my favorite movies, and I watched it every day, from ages 3 to 5. I loved the movie. And she was a seamstress at that time. This is before she went back to finish off her PhD degree, and she made me a Mozart costume. And so I dressed up as Mozart when I was 4 years old. And it was the perfect costume, and she nourished and nurtured that music thing in me. And she herself was not a musician, and no one else really in my family is. But she was the one that instilled that in me, and I'm very thankful for that. So she got it when it comes to music.
She understood, and I think that's what made it special, right? And I think it would have helped you feel her presence, irrespective of where you are today, because of the music she had brought to you from you were a child.
And it was her. It wasn't anybody else in my family, nobody else, blasting that classical music while I was in my crib. And she told me that I would kick my feet during the thunderstorm part of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony.
Awesome. That's beautiful, and that's a really good memory that you can keep of your mom. Like every time you hear Beethoven or Mozart, you think of mom and how much joy she brings you and how much smile she puts on your face despite the grief that you are going through. So I can say your mom's memory would have influenced some of your performances that you do today, despite her not being there.
Very much so. Specifically, I had mentioned to you before the Carole King. She loved Carole King, and she loved that song, You've Got a Friend. And every single time I play that show, I just close my eyes and I know she's there. She's there with me in my soul, in my heart.
Oh, she'll never go away. She will always be there. And if there's anything that you're going through that just feels off, either you play a tune or you think of her, she soothes you and she calms you and makes you feel comforted. I'll just transition a little bit and talk about the messy middle. So this is where grief and guilt comes in, sometimes to know that your mom is no longer with us, right? So grief isn't linear. And what did that middle of your journey look like? After the service, after the calls slow down, when it's just you, your instrument, your music? How did you deal with that? How did you cope? And how are you coping today?
I think in the middle zone, I was very avoidant. That's the way I would put it. After all the phone calls stopped, it really set in. I was avoidant, like, okay, well, that happened. Time to move on. That's the point where I was too scared to listen to her voicemails or recording or watch any videos. Like, I mean, we have home videos, we all sorts of stuff. I still haven't even got to that point yet, but if I would sum it up in one word, it would be avoidant. And then as it's grown through time, which is not linear when it comes to grief, I've accepted it more, and every now and then I'll sprinkle in, I'm going to listen to this type of recording, but I really haven't dealt with it yet completely. And I don't know if therapy is going to help that. I don't think there's anything that anybody could say to me to fill that hole and make me feel better about it.
So did you ever feel guilty for laughing again or finding joy? I know she would want you to find joy, right? But do you ever feel guilty?
You know what? I think the answer is no to that. I think most people might say, I feel bad because I'm not allowed to be happy ever again. No, I actually don't feel guilty. I think that there are certain things that she wouldn't be very proud of me about, and there are certain things that she was disappointed in me about, just bad decisions on who I hang out with, that type of thing, right? But I don't feel guilty. I really haven't had a lot of joy, though, since she's been gone, but the joy that I have had, and when I'm in that moment, and I'm feeling it, I think that I'm just fine with it. I'm proud of myself for being able to feel it when I can, because it's very few and far between,
Do you think when you're playing your music, does that bring you joy? Because that was something that she brought to you since you were a child, right? So when you play your music, that would give you a sense that she's there, she's looking down on you from wherever she is. So it gives you that sense of peace and comfort.
Yeah, I do. I think it depends on the music. Because she made it very clear, like, certain things that she'd come to see my bands. She was at every concert that I ever did. She was always there. She would make it very clear what she liked and what she didn't like. But yes, I think
she's your greatest critique then, right?
Yeah, she didn't hold anything back, and that's good. I mean, in other ways too. I mean, she was very honest. Brutally honest. She'd also be proud that I have removed myself from certain musical dynamic situations, that I'm now moving on to bigger and better things musically, and have left certain things in the dust that she didn't really approve of at the time, and I didn't understand why she didn't approve of them at the time, right? Like, because I was immersed in it, and I was like, this is great, look at me, woo. And she's like, nah, right? Like, it's not really. But now I look back in retrospect, I'm like, geez, she was right. So I think that she would be proud of how I'm progressing musically. Yes, I really do. I think I mentioned to you before, like, we're doing the Charlie Brown, Vince Guaraldi Christmas, we're covering that, and like, that was. She got me the book, the music book for that when I was, I think, like 13 or 14 for Christmas. And because we love, Charlie Brown Christmas. Who doesn't love that movie, right? And with the soundtrack to that. She is now, I get to play it live, and she would be so proud of that. It was very important music to us.
And I'm assuming whenever you play that music, that's one of your tribute to her.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Specific songs on there too that she loved. And
what surprised you the most about the grieving process? It could be at the time when she was first diagnosed with cancer, or it could simply be after she passed. What surprised you the most, if anything?
I didn't want to accept it. I was in denial too. It's like, it's funny because you asked me that first. I was like, oh, everybody else is in denial, not me though. It's like, no, you know what? I was in denial. I didn't know what the heck was going to happen, or what I was going to see and unfold with the cancer, with the degradation process, right? All right, I want to share this really quick thing when it really hit me, when she was laying there on life support, when we knew it was over, but my dad didn't want to let her go and was trying to keep her on like renal dialysis or whatever. I don't know if this is related to your question, but I do really want to share this because it's very, very important. And when I was really sick, when I was little, my mom would always read me this story. It's called The Tailor from Gloucester, right? And like when I had a fever, you know, whatever, and you're sick. And it was very comforting to me. And she knew, she remembered. But her and I never talked about that as adults, really. That like, hey, Mom, remember when I was always sick? You would read me this story. So anyway, when she was laying on that bed, and this is when it was really hitting me, like when on her deathbed, literally, I pulled that story up and I started reading it to her. And she was on, you know, life support. So she was hardly reactive to anything at all. But she reacted to that when I started reading her that story. She did. She squoze my hand. No, but it was just the most beautiful moment. And it was just me and her because at that point, during COVID, they don't allow more than one person in, but they did allow me and my sister and my dad in there because they knew that it was the end. They went down to go get food, and it was just me and her, and I read her that story, and when she squoze my hand and I knew she was still there, I got to say my final goodbye to her. And she knew. It was like she remembered from when I was a kid. And that's what it really said. And I guess to answer your question, like when it really hit, you know, this is it. And then I, you know, and I think she died, I think a couple hours later, that's just, wow. I mean, it's like, I don't know if I answered your question correctly, but I did just want to share that story.
I think that hits perfectly, Laura, because that's when you realize it takes you back to your childhood days when you were sick. And you were able to bring that back to the moment that this is it. This is when the grieving is going to start for you.
Exactly.
And that's when you realize that I'm going to lose my mom.
That was it. I know.
Yes. Yeah. And the fact that she recognized it, that very moment.
Wild.
Was something else unimaginable. So I understood that very moment. Yes.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, right?
And I think that will always help you to remember her, because at that moment you didn't see her lying on that bed.
Yes.
You literally saw her, the woman, a mother, a grandmother. You saw her, and she saw you at that very moment as her daughter, a young woman who is growing up. She saw you. So I believe it's where that grieving process began for you.
I think that was the moment. That was it. That was when I basically had to let go of all the, you know what, there's nothing I can control anymore.
Absolutely. No.
It's all about trying to control everything and medicine.
Absolutely.
And all that.
Yeah.
And that point that you make too, it's like, I don't see you as this dying person on the bed. I have all these pictures in my head of her. That's how I see you,
yes.
You know?
Absolutely.
She always said, like, don't ever let them intubate me. Just let me die before they intubate me. And obviously she had to get intubated, you know? But
right.
She didn't want us to see her like that. But the point is we're not seeing you like that. We're seeing you as you.
My mom, a wife, a grandmother. That's what you saw her as at that moment.
Exactly. Yeah.
Her being a cancer researcher, she knows what that does to your body, and she did not want you guys to see her that way. Because it's devastating.
It's terrifying.
It hurts. Yes.
I've never seen that in real life. It's bizarre.
Absolutely.
You know? Again, you know, that's not how. And I hope that she knows wherever she is. You know, we didn't see her like that.
Absolutely.
And just, you know, too, on a side note, we dedicated her body to cancer research. because she had
Wonderful.
that genetic mutation, the EFGR lung cancer thing. So because
Yeah.
they're still trying to figure it out. So
Figure it out. Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. What does healing look like now for you? Now that you've understand the grief and what that looks like from your family perspective.
Yeah, it's well, like we were talking about before, it's certainly not linear. Time doesn't necessarily heal everything. It does in certain ways, certain other things, but grief, when it's your own mother that birthed you, it's never gonna go away. I mean, even 20 years from now, something's gonna pop up and it's gonna remind me of her. And sure, I'm not gonna be thinking about it every day. I don't currently think about it every day, but I'm feeling okay. I guess to answer that question, I'm filling up my life with other things, other progressive things, right? Moving forward, which is what she would want me to do. And you know, like we were just talking about, I like to learn. I get bored easily. You know, I want to learn new things. I want to explore other opportunities and that type of thing, and always grow.
You keep moving forward, our memory will always be there. But
Yes.
to keep progressing and keep going forward, and that's what she would want from you, to keep going. But think of her, remember what she was, and then when you become a mom yourself in the future, you can think about, I would like to do some of the things my mom did when I was growing up, as well to my child. So I think the memory will live on. You won't hold yourself back. You'll just continue to think of her. She will be there in your thoughts at all times.
It's the little things that remind you of the person, you know, staring at you. I don't know if you are familiar with the constellations, you know, in the sky or whatever, but there's this cluster of stars that is like right next to Orion that's currently out there. It's like a little cluster of stars. But I always tell people that I'm very close to, just look up at that thing, and that's where I feel like our meeting spot is. Like, I look up at that, and I feel like my sister and my mom are just up there. And even if they're not up there, they're somewhere, but I know that in my head, and I'm thinking that, and it's keeping it alive.
Absolutely.
Within me. Yeah.
How has losing your mom and your sister changed you?
I would say the first word I would think would be like very humbling. I was in my mid-20s. I had a grand old time in life. Everything was going great. Yeah, I had just gotten that job where you and I had worked, where I met you. And I was just doing great. And then it hit me. It was very humbling. It knocked me on my butt, I'm not gonna lie. And that was when my sister died. And then I never would have expected that 2 years later that I would have lost my mom. So it's definitely aged me in ways that, you know, but maybe in good ways too, right? I don't have time for, I don't want to swear, but bull crap. How's that?
Yes.
No more time for that. It's enabled me to zoom out, look at the big picture of stuff, not focus in on things that you can't control, and just focus on what's important. So I guess that's maybe how it's changed me. It made me grow up whether or not I wanted to.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I can agree. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So
If you'd say that she had taught you something that shaped how you live, what's that one thing?
well, like I said, she pursued her PhD degree when I was still young, and I grew up in the laboratories walking around. She got it at UConn Health Center. So she definitely taught me science, but she taught me how to be very vigilant about finishing something that you started. And, you know, I paid my way through college. I did all that. Unfortunately, my parents didn't have the money to pay for my college, so I was having trouble, and I was just like, I just wanted to quit so badly. And it was like I was in my senior year. You know, I did all the stuff. I was like ready to graduate with my chemistry degree. And then I was like, you know, this is too hard. I don't want to do it. P-Chem, it's too hard. Like, I'm just going to take a semester off. And my mom was like, nope, you do not take a semester off. You just finish it out and you just do it. She forced me to do it. And I'm very glad that she did that. So that's my answer to that. That is very, very important because it also translated into my life as an adult. Just like, okay, well, I was recently laid off from my job, so what am I going to do? Lay around and go just be a full-time musician? Right? I could do that. And waitress. No, I'm getting a new job.
Exactly.
And I'm going to get an even better job. And so that's what she taught me.
Yeah. I think the one word we can sum that up, and I believe we spoke about it before, is resilience. Because
Resilience,
for her,
exactly.
that's what she brought to the table with you guys. And I think that's one thing you've learned. And I can agree with you, Laura. P-Chem was one of the hardest courses in chemistry, and I was a chemistry major myself, so that was difficult.
I still, to this day,
but I loved it. I actually did well in that class, but it was hard.
Oh, I ended up getting an A, too. I worked my butt off. I still, to this day, I just had a nightmare the other day about vectors, magnitude and direction, of vectors.
Yeah, but it makes you appreciate doing chemistry after you get out of that class, right?
Yes. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So I'll ask you this one last question, and I hope it's something that you can give to our listeners. If you could tell them one thing about grief and love, what would that be?
Everybody is going through grief, whatever form it might be. There's not a single person in the world that has not gone through a terrible grief, whatever. So you just have to remember that when you see people on a day-to-day basis. Just remember to be kind to people and just assume that this person is just as hurt as I am inside. And so just be kind. That's the takeaway.
I love that, Laura. Thank you so much for being with us and for letting us into this tender and powerful chapter of your life. Your story reminds us that grief is certainly not linear, and healing rarely arrives in a straight line. It also reminds us that grief is not the end of love. If anything, it's where love becomes even more visible in how we remember, how we show up, and how we carry forward the spirit of those we've lost. But when we speak our truth and move with it, whether through music, through conversation, through love, we begin to feel our feet on the ground again. If this conversation moved you, please share it with someone. Let someone else know they're not alone. And if you're navigating loss or walking along someone who is, be gentle. Be kind. You're doing more than you know. Until next time, keep breathing, keep moving, and stay grounded. Thank you again, Laura.